is Richard In. I'm here at the CACF Gala. It is the 38th anniversary, and we're here to celebrate all the amazing work that CACF has done this past year and continuing to do going forward. Tonight's honorees are James Rhee, Maya Wiley, and their gala chairs are Fahad Asghar, Erica Chow, and Vanessa Leung. Tonight's co-hosts are Ernabel DeMilo and Vivian Lee, with auctioneer Paul Flores Taylor. We hope that everyone has a great time. And we're going to be interviewing a bunch of folks here as well. So let's get started. I'm here tonight with co-executive directors of CACF. Can you guys introduce yourselves?
Of course.
Hi, I'm Anita Gundanna, co-executive director.
And I'm Vanessa Leung.
Okay. And let's start by talking about CACF. Tell me what it stands for, what its missions are, primary focuses of your work that you do, and what are some of the most important goals of this organization?
Yeah.
Well, we are the nation's only Pan-Asian children and families organization that advocates for equity for AAPI families across New York State. And so what we do is a lot of advocacy and policy and building our communities together to fight for change that betters our community.
So as CACF, the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families, we were founded in 1986 by service providers in the community that were really concerned about our government not being really prepared to understand or meet the needs of that growing community. And for us, it really means that it's important to not be at CACF the only ones at the table, but really build the leadership of our community so that our young people, our parents, and our service providers can be at the table to make policy change and lasting change for our communities.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. We're at the gala. It's often called the Catalyst for Change Awards. Tonight it's about igniting change or something like that, right?
Igniting action.
Igniting action. Oh, wow, I like that even better.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit more about what this year's gala theme is, and what type of messages do you hope to convey to tonight's guests, and if there's any particular speakers or stories that you would like to highlight for our attendees?
Yeah, so at CACF, really the core of our work is coalition. It's about bringing real diversity together with shared purpose. And so tonight is really about bringing our coalition together to move forward and to really think through how we can come together to improve our communities. It isn't just about one or two people for us. It really is about creating a network, a bunch of leaders within our community that are really passionate and pushing for change in a unified voice. So our honorees are exemplary of that type of coalition building that we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think for CACF, we always see that it's, we believe constellations and not just shining stars. So really important for all of us to make the change and transform communities by ensuring that we're connected and aligned and really putting equity at the center of our work. I think our two honorees this year, James and Maya, do speak to the leadership that we need in our communities that really kind of come from a point of kindness and empathy to connect and identify shared struggles and really transform communities for the better.
Actually, one of the special things for tonight is also we're featuring a lot of our young people. And our young people are one of the core backbones of our work. We work with them day in, day out to really kind of understand who they are, their identities, their histories, their communities, and build a true appreciation for care for our community as leaders. And so they're going to be featured as speakers. They're going to be actually interviewing the honorees and putting them on the spot today too. So we're really looking forward to our young people.
The voices of the AAPI communities become stronger here in the United States, right? With more coalitions, with more leaders, popping up here and there. With this shift, what future plans do you have to support this mission in terms of, just having that type of voice, at the table and things to say, where does the CACF play into all of this?
We are really investing in our coalition. I think that what it really takes is to bring our communities together. It is a very diverse community. We're not just talking about, we're having language diversity, we have different ethnic groups, we have a lot of diverse needs within our community. We represent a very, very diverse community. So bringing that community together with shared purpose is really important to us. How we do that is really through pushing forward the voices of our community. We build storytellers, people who can actually relate the challenges that they face day in and day out. And what's important about that is that we can find where we face shared struggle across communities of color, across immigrant communities, and really build solidarity. The AAPI community has been used as a wedge for a long time, and really kind of working to find our shared purpose is important to CACF. It is really at the root of what we do.
And at the end of the day, when we talk about, CACF, we're here to build a community too powerful to ignore. The idea of building that power is to ensure that those who are struggling and marginalized in our communities have what they need to thrive.
So there are certain primary challenges facing different types of communities, and from where CACF has, eyes and ears, what are some of these challenges that you see, and how are you all addressing those types of issues?
Well, our community is heavily immigrant, and upwards of 80% right now. So there's a lot of challenges that we face that are upcoming. In the next few years, it may be an uphill battle to protect the rights of our community, and CACF is going to be there and has been there and will continue to really push to protect our communities. I think also we face a lot of poverty and issues that a lot of folks face. Housing struggles, food insecurity, and struggles with healthcare and healthcare access. Those are all kinds of struggles that our communities face, and unfortunately, those struggles are often hidden because there isn't accurate data on our community. And disaggregated data that really breaks down this kind of monolithic myth that then shows what is the true need within our community. And so we fight for better data and data equity as well.
Yeah, because we know when data informs community responses and policy responses to needs in community. And so if we don't have that information, we may fail to be able to properly support those communities.
We just had a major election, right? Not just with the presidency, but in terms of all levels of government. We're talking congressional, Senate, local, state. Can you tell us a little bit more about why this particular election may have been very important and significant for the AAPI community? And what actions has CACF have done to strengthen our efforts towards solidarity, towards working together and resolving community issues with the assistance of legislators, or through in terms of using the tools at hand to really have a grassroots efforts towards enacting change, lasting sustainable change. I hope the question wasn't too long.
No. I honestly think that what happened during this election speaks to the need for us to really hear from our communities and speak to our communities. I don't know that there is enough understanding that is happening among our community members, among our families, around what are the true issues we're facing, what is the needs that we have, and how to meet those needs. And I feel like there needs to be a lot more engagement of folks and a lot more shared learning, listening, understanding what are the needs and what do people really, how do people see, what their future wants, how do people see their future? And I think if we can capture that, I do believe that the roots are that people believe in equity, especially for people who struggle. And I think capturing those voices and really trying to engage people in dialogue is very important.
I mean, I think we also make sure that folks understand the role of government, that our government plays that impact our lives on a day-to-day basis. And so our elected leaders are elected because, it is, they're, whether or not we voted for them, at the end, they're still responsible for listening to our communities, for them to address our needs. And I think this is why it's really important that we have our young people, as well as our community members, our staff at our member organizations who see what's going on the ground, present to share those stories, present to be to share what's happening and actually come with solutions on how best to address those needs.
A lot of times people don't feel like they can access government, right? A lot of times people don't understand that they can speak to their elected representatives or that they can voice their concerns. And so I think equipping people with those kinds of skills is very important.
And doing that in coalition is even much more powerful. We don't have to do it individually. We can come together as a coalition, and we are also proud members of API Voice, which is our, how we get involved in the civic engagement side of the work. But the power of coalition, where we bring together really diverse perspectives with a shared goal, with some shared solutions, is how we can actually transform communities.
And our community-based organizations who CACF works with as part of our coalition, they really are the core of that work. Working within community organizations that are trusted in their communities, that they have language accessible, culturally relevant, and responsive services, that's where the work is at with the communities. And that's, I think, investing in our community organizations is going to be the key to actually moving our communities forward in a better way.
Post-election, you've kind of mentioned there might be some challenges coming along the way. So, what steps or what plans does CACF have going forward to, come ahead of the curve and tackle the issues before they become a problem, or at least try to mitigate the issues as much as possible?
I mean, the beauty of what we have built at CACF is that we are networked with both city, state, and national advocacy groups. And Vanessa and I, we've been through this before. There are infrastructure that we've built to actually connect our communities with folks who, if we join together, that fight to protect the rights of our community, or that fight to really kind of ensure that we can make New York State be the the leader in promoting equity, is really what our goals are. We do live in a state such as New York that allows us to still look forward and move forward and think about progress within our communities. And so we're definitely going to continue working with our allies in that way.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we will ensure that the API community is not lost in those conversations. It's not really just about CACF, but how do we bring our coalition with us to those conversations? How do we uplift the recommendations that they have for their communities? We don't, I think it's very easy for divisiveness to come through. It's very easy to forget sometimes communities that don't have the support. And so we're going to make sure that we create that space for those who are most marginalized within our community to feel that they can be supported, that they know we'll be there to support, and ensure that their rights are protected.
Yeah, and specifically, there has been work that we've engaged in around public charge, around coverage for all and healthcare for all, around education equity and maintaining the funding to our public school system. Those are fights that we're going to continue to be involved in and support and promote.
What are some of CACF's long-term visions and directions for the future?
So, CACF, we just, with the thought leadership and the partnership of our staff and our board, we will be announcing very shortly our 5-year strategic plan. We have been working with a number of organizations throughout the state, and so next 2025 will be our listening year. We want to hear what's going on in AAPI communities throughout New York State, across the different regions. And of course, we would never forget where we were founded here in New York City and the groups that we've built, those decades of partnership with. But we will hopefully be building a larger and more powerful coalition.
CACF have like a chant or logo or slogan? Let's ignite action. All right, I'm gonna put this down. All right, at the count of three, we're gonna go like, let's ignite action. Let's ignite action. All right, I'm here with one of tonight's honorees, James Rhee, author of Red Helicopter. If you introduce yourself.
안녕하세요, James Rhee입니다. I'm James Rhee. It's good to meet everyone. Sure, I was born here in the Bronx. My parents were immigrants from Korea in 1966, 1967. I grew up on Long Island and went to public school my whole life in the New York State area. So that's my personal life. I have 3 kids, I'm married, I live in Boston. Professionally, I've done a lot of different things. I think most of it has been to be an advocate for people who have a harder time in this country. Clearly a lot of that was influenced by my relationship with my parents, and particularly my mom. It used to bother me how hard, it was unnecessarily difficult in this country sometimes for them. And so my whole life I went and studied at Harvard, I studied economics, philosophy, and politics, I taught high school, I went to law school. I've managed a lot of money because money's also part of the solution. And then I ran a company for a long time that was one of the largest businesses for Black women because their experience reminded me a lot of my mom. And then, so these days I teach at MIT, I chair entrepreneurship at Howard, I just wrote a best-selling book. It's being translated in Korean. I think there's going to be a big movie that we will produce and adapt from this book. It's going to be about a very ordinary Korean family and a very ordinary Black family trying to make their way in America. So that's a bit of my background.
Okay, and so tonight you're being honored for the Catalyst for Change Awards. Can you give us some thoughts about what this award means and what it means to you, and what it could inspire for others?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say I'm 53 years old, so I was born in 1971. I never really realized. No one taught me that immigration was difficult for Asian people before 1965. So I didn't have a lot of role models growing up, and it was generally, I was the first English-speaking person in my family. My brother was born in Korea and immigrated here, and so I didn't have a lot of role models. Growing up, I've always been, sometimes it wasn't welcome, but I've always led. I've led on the sports field, I've led in community, I generally have led. And sometimes that has not been easy to do because it's not a typical role sometimes for Asian people, Asian men too. Sometimes some groups don't like it. And most of my life, it took me a long time to realize that was a challenge. Like there were sometimes I had barriers. I said, why is it harder for me? And so that's why I'm here. I've done a TED Talk on leadership now, and even writing this book was not an easy book. It's a book on leadership, and that was not a normal book to be written by someone that looked like me. And so I'm here particularly for the younger people. My whole life now is for younger people. I want them to look at someone like me. There are many of me's that are not being honored tonight, and I'm a metaphor for all those people. There are a lot more leadership stories than are being told, and the young people have to know that, and so they don't have to feel shy or awkward about leading. We need more leaders. Asian stories, Asian voices are generally not heard. Part of the reason is sometimes I don't think that we are raising our kids in this country to lead. Right? Sometimes it's more to fit in, and I really do understand that as a son of immigrants. But over the next 50 years, that's not good enough. It's just not.
Yeah, that's very powerful. I know we just interviewed the co-executive directors for CACF, and they're talking about very similar things, and it's very obvious why you're receiving this award tonight. Could you talk a little bit more about organizations like CACF, or just CACF in general, about why it's important and why people should be supporting organizations like them?
Yeah. I think our country has, and the world generally, because of social media and culturally, we are worshiping false idols. I mean, we look for people that speak loud often on social, and it's just constant talking. I tend to like, and what real leadership is, are people who generally are, they're earnest, they're quiet, they get the job done, they get stuff done. They talk less, there's too much talking. Like, if you actually do change and do lead, you don't have time to talk. You're too busy doing, and you let other people talk. The leader generally doesn't talk. And so my role in life has generally been to brag about those type of leaders. Like, I'm a really good hype guy for people who deserve it. And so I'm here because I think Anita and Vanessa are like that. The not-for-profits they support, they are doing really hard work. No one ever talks about them. And so I joined the board here partly because of that. I'm very good at telling stories and getting people to pay attention about other people, and that's what I'm doing.
That's very inspiring. That's very great. Any last thoughts you'd like to add? It could be a plug for your book.
No. Well, look, I think it would be great if you read the book. The book is something that it's all the things you need to have agency, to have real independence in this country. So it's private equity, law school, finance, accounting, cognitive science. It's all the topics that don't get taught in school for some reason. All the protagonists are generally women, and then me. They're all either Asian or black. And so it's this upside down protagonist that really shouldn't be that upside down. It's being launched in Korea starting today. I was just in Korea for 2 weeks. There's a lot of media on my website about, it's Korean media. They've already picked up on this because the Koreans in Korea realize it's a story about what it means to be Korean. So for me, being Korean in this country sometimes was hard. Sometimes I didn't understand what it meant to be Korean because my parents really wanted me to be, quote, American. But in my 40s, as both of my parents were dying, I finally understood what it meant to be Korean. And it took a group of black women to really remind me what it meant to be Korean. And so that's the beauty of the story. So the Korean, as the country of Korea, they're very excited for this book, not just Gyopo here, because it's a 진짜 story of what it means to be Korean. The whole book is a story of how do you identify, quantify, spread Cheong. Like, how do you do that, right? It's very difficult to understand what Cheong is. It's the essence of being Korean, and I finally understood what that meant. And I think the world could use a whole lot of it now, not just Korea, which is having difficulties itself, but also here in the United States. And I do believe that if Koreans can really embrace being Korean, which sometimes has been hard for Korean people, sometimes we look at other cultures and say, wow, that's 너무 좋다, right? It's the best. I'm very proud to be Korean. I'm very proud of the culture of Korea. I really hope that Koreans, the diaspora all around the world, really become proud of what it means to be Korean, because the Koreanness, I believe the traits that we have, which are highly creative, very emotionally intelligent, right? Very mutualistically inclined when we allow ourselves to be. Those are the traits that are necessary to lead in this world that's really teetering on chaos. So that's why the book, I think, is going to be very popular in Korea.
So being, someone who's you're second generation Korean, right? So, I'm second generation myself. Most second generation folks are in their, I was born here, yeah, born, raised in the United States. We're all like hitting our 40s, 50s. We have another generation that's being raised by folks like us. And do you have any messages for them about, what it's like, what it means to be Korean, what it means to, have that sense of identity, belonging, and that confidence that you yourself are inspiring in so many other people?
Yeah, I think that for first generation, it was like surviving. And then second generation, little less, some surviving, but more like striving, like fitting in, like, a little bit less koseng, right? But still, it's hard. I would really like for this next generation to understand what it means to thrive. It's very different, right? Like thriving meaning having interests, making enough money to support a family, but also having hobbies, and being interesting and having time to do civics duties and not just working all the time and realizing that you want to live a really fulsome and well-balanced life. And that's what real leadership is. I think that in order for Asians and particularly Koreans to lead in this country, you need to carve out time for things that don't just help yourself. Sometimes when you're surviving and when you're striving, you really are looking at things with a little bit of scarcity mindset. It's like, you have to eat, I have to survive. But I really would like us to get to a point where we're building things for other people too. And I think that's one of the challenges as second, third generation Asians really have to do. We really have to, once you can build for other people, it's a completely different mindset. It makes you an entrepreneur. It forces you to take risk. You realize that not everything is binary, that winning is a very holistic proposition. So that would be my hope for this next generation of younger people.
So now I am so pleased to introduce one of these young people, CACF's current ASAP youth leader. Let's hear it for Olivia Kim.
As an Asian American, I always felt unsure about my identity. When I sat down at the dinner table, barely able to translate my grandmother's fluent Korean, I felt more American than anything else. But when I went to ASAP summer conference, something shifted. As I learned about the intricacies of being AAPI, like the way we interact with other minorities, to our community's sacrifices and accomplishments, I wanted to belong and to learn. I learned that despite how large and complex the AAPI community is, we all flourish underneath our shared solidarity. Later, my time in ASAP would help me understand the value of and how intertwined both building bridges with others and understanding myself are. My ASAP peers and I share an open-mindedness and a desire to bring attention to our struggles to make our overall community stronger. Building these connections has helped me feel like I belong in the AAPI community, and ASAP has shown me my role as a community advocate. CACF ignites action within our AAPI community. With ASAP, I engage in systemic, pan-Asian, community-led change that has allowed me to deeply understand the problems that our community faces. I work on ASAP's mental health campaign, where we research and discuss our own experience with mental health in public schools. Because ASAP connects youth around the city, I have built a community with many youth who have different backgrounds and experiences, but all come together to work towards the same goals. ASAP is unique because it's the only space I've been in that is focused solely on youth-led AAPI advocacy. Our community isn't perfect, however. There are still times when I've had to reassess my own personal biases towards other communities of color or encourage others to reassess theirs. One of the harder topics that I've had to explore is the relationship between the AAPI community and other minority groups. There are deeply rooted beliefs and biases that can cause harm and division and inequitable systems. ASAP is a place that encourages me to challenge these beliefs and think about the ways we can build bridges and understanding with other community groups. With our allies in the Black community, we share the same goal of fighting against white supremacy and being stronger together. But that requires us to break down the barriers that have been created to push us apart. And these barriers can only be addressed through conversation and action. Earlier this spring, when Councilmember Rita Joseph was holding town hall meetings on the potential cuts for services in schools, I spoke at the Queens Town Hall along with my peers. I spoke about the challenges AAPI students face in schools and the barriers around mental health support. I do not want our community to be a wedge in the fight for justice and equity. The only way we can truly advocate for the things that the AAPI community need is to work to build coalitions and solidarity and identify solutions that benefit us all. ASAP to amplify our needs. The collective effort to share our stories to spark action against the systemic barriers that we face is something I've seen and participated in within ASAP, and is what makes ASAP so special. It was underneath ASAP that I took on the role of both a giver and a learner, someone who wants to continue hearing stories of our struggles and find ways to make those struggles more known and less common. I now strongly identify as an Asian American, as someone who wants to lead, be an active advocate for our goals, and continue to be a strong voice for our community. Thank you.